Welcome back, learners. Ready for another deep dive. Today, we're tackling something a little different, a bit of a contrast. We've got Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, and we're going to put it up against, well, excerpts from The Law of One,
Mhm.
specifically books 1 through 5. So buckle up.
Yeah, an interesting pairing for sure.
Yeah.
You've got, on the one hand, a classic piece of literature, fiction, grappling with, the darkness of colonialism, the human psyche, all that. And then on the other, we're diving into channeled teachings about, like, cosmic consciousness and spiritual evolution and densities and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, it definitely raises some eyebrows, right?
Stuff.
So our mission, if you will, for this deep dive is to see what happens when we kind of smash these two together. What kind of unexpected connections pop up, about consciousness, spiritual growth, even just like the nature of reality itself.
Mm,
Think of it as a fast track to understanding without having to wade through like a zillion pages,
exactly. We're distilling it down.
distilling it down. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's jump right in. Starting with Heart of Darkness, how about we take a look at Marlowe's first impressions, right, of the African coast? I mean, it's not just a coastline, it's more like this living enigma, this featureless space, right, that opens up into this heavy, monotonous grimness, and then boom, the colossal jungle. It's like stepping into another world, something so different from that European experience.
You really get that feeling like hitting this ancient, unknowable presence.
Hmm.
And then bam, he encounters those black fellows, right, in their canoes. It's such a stark contrast. He sees this wild vitality, this raw energy in how they move. And there's this line that just grabs you. It says, they wanted no excuse for being there, just pure primal existence. And it makes you think about his own feeling of being lost, and that mournful and senseless delusion that he's carrying around.
And this is where it gets interesting. Because you can't help but think, is this raw existence, is this maybe hinting at what the Law of One describes as second density consciousness, that realm of, advanced plant and animal life? These beings, they're alive, they're connected to their surroundings, but without that self-awareness, that upward drive towards the infinite, that we see in third density where humans are hanging out.
So when Marlo sees that pure vitality, that sense of just being, without justification, without overthinking it, is Conrad, without directly saying it, giving us a peek into a different type of consciousness, like one that the Law of One lays out. It's like they just are, versus us constantly analyzing everything.
Yeah, exactly. It's not that Conrad's like putting these people in a box, defining them, but the way they are, their directness, their connection with nature, it highlights a way of being that the Law of One actually recognizes as a separate type of consciousness. And that contrast makes us question our own ways of experiencing reality. Are there other valid ways?
Right, right. Makes you think about existence in a whole new way. And then Marlowe has this moment, this connection, and wham, it's shattered. He sees this French man of war just randomly firing into a continent. No target, no reason, just violence. He even describes it as having this touch of insanity, kind of lugubrious drollery. It's absurd.
And that seemingly pointless act, it makes you think about the Law of One's description of the Orion group. They're all about conquest, right? Unlike the Confederation, who they believe in waiting for the calling, the Orion group, they want to control, to influence, even dominate.
So this random bombardment, could it be like a warped reflection? Not a direct parallel, obviously, but a thematic echo of this Orion way of forcing themselves on others. It's that sense of insanity that Marlowe feels. It seems to line up with how disruptive and unbalanced that kind of uninvited intervention can be.
Definitely. And it raises this big question, this ethical question about interfering, whether it's colonialism or even on this cosmic scale that the Law of One talks about. The Confederation's idea of waiting for a call, it really emphasizes the importance of free will, respecting a civilization's own path. It's the opposite of that random violence Marlowe sees.
So moving on to Kurtz, let's talk about this complicated guy.
Yeah.
So Marlowe overhears this conversation, right? Kurtz is heading back to his isolated station after traveling like 300 miles.
Yeah.
And the other characters, they're baffled. They can't figure out why. They call him that man, dismiss him. And at the same time, they call this half-caste clerk, who's apparently super capable and brave, that scoundrel. It's like everyone's view is twisted.
And what's really interesting is Kurtz's stated ambition, his goal, which Marlowe learns later. He says, each station should be like a beacon on the road towards better things. A center for trade, of course, but also for humanizing, improving, instructing. It's that classic colonial justification, the whole we're bringing civilization thing, masking the exploitation underneath.
Right. And we all know how that ends. It all falls apart, crashes and burns with that famous, chilling line, the horror. The horror.
Mm-hmm.
This vision of progress, of enlightenment, it just turns into something truly awful.
And this descent, it connects with the law of one's idea of the first distortion, free will. It's the right to choose your own path, right? But the law of one also says when free will ignores the law of one, the principle of unity and love, it can lead to some pretty bad outcomes, a real departure from harmony.
So Kurt starts with this idea, this belief in bringing civilization, in humanizing, improving, and maybe he means it. But out there, isolated in the Congo with all that power, no checks and balances, his free will goes off the rails. His initial goals, they get corrupted, and he ends up facing that horror.
Exactly. And the law of one makes a point about this. It says, the danger is in Europe when it comes to your spiritual alignment. But in a new environment where anything goes, anything can be done.
Mhm.
And that's Kurt's, right? The absence of those normal social constraints, it unleashes something dark within him.
Let's shift gears a bit, talk about part three, love, loss, and this concept of harvest. So Marla finally meets Kurtz's intended. And even though it's been a year since he died, her grief is still so strong. Conrad describes her mature capacity for fidelity, for belief, for suffering. It's like, for her, he had died only yesterday. And her statement, I have survived, it's incredibly moving. But there's also this sense of Kurtz's eternal condemnation hanging over it all. It's heavy.
It is. And this powerful, enduring emotional bond, it makes you think about the law of one's idea of harvest. It's this planetary cycle where mind, body, spirit complexes, they transition to higher densities, based on their vibration, their polarity, whether they lean towards service to others or service to self. It's about where they're at, spiritually.
So this intended, her unwavering devotion, her deep sorrow, could that be like a sign of this profound soul connection, a bond that goes beyond death, maybe even across different densities? The sheer intensity of her feelings, it suggests a connection to Kurtz that goes beyond just the physical, regardless of where he ended up spiritually.
It's a very interesting interpretation for sure. The law of one did indicate that the harvest is now, in their time frame, and that roughly lines up with the 2011 Earth timeline, give or take. We can't know for sure what happened to Kurtz, but this lasting love from the intended, even with all the darkness Marlo saw, it raises this big question, right? How do these powerful emotional bonds, these acts of devotion, how do they factor into the spiritual journey, especially when facing these hearts of darkness and making those moral choices?
Right, it makes you think. Okay, let's get to part four, the nature of illusion and the search for truth. The Law of One really emphasizes what they call the illusory nature of third density. They say our understanding of cause and effect, it's often just a simple product of the complexity that man upon this planet has generated. They want us to see past these complexities we create and become aware of the creator. It's about going deeper.
That idea that our reality is kind of constructed, it's similar to what Marlo feels throughout his journey up the Congo. He feels like he's being kept away from the truth of things within the toil of a mournful and senseless delusion. It's like both Heart of Darkness and the Law of One. They point to a deeper reality that goes beyond the surface. For Marlo, it's seeing past the lies of colonialism. And for the Law of One, it's about moving beyond the limits of our everyday awareness.
And the Law of One, they're pretty clear about how to get to this deeper truth. They say straight up that no amount of seeking within the intellectual concepts of your people, no amount of careful planning or careful interpretation of the written or spoken word will lead you to the simple truth. Instead, they say it's about meditation and experiencing love. It's a different path.
This is really relevant for you, learner, especially since you're all about learning efficiently. Exploring intellectually, like diving into Conrad's narrative, it gives you insights, sure, but both Heart of Darkness and the Law of One seem to suggest that to really understand, you need a more direct experience. It's like the intellectual stuff can give you a map, but you have to actually walk the terrain of truth to know it.
That's a great way to put it. So wrapping up this mind-bending deep dive, we've gone from the depths of Conrad's Heart of Darkness to the cosmic teachings of the Law of One. We've found some unexpected connections, haven't we? Touching on facing the unknown, how good intentions can go bad, the power of love even in the face of loss, and the idea that there's a deeper truth hidden beneath our everyday reality, a truth that goes beyond just thinking about it.
And for you, learner, as you keep exploring, think about this. How does the darkness that Marlo sees, both the external darkness of colonialism and that internal darkness in Kurtz, how does it connect to your own personal catalyst? And the choices you make, the choices that the Law of One says are key to your spiritual growth and this whole harvest thing. Could facing your own heart of darkness, choosing love and service to others, could that be the key to navigating your own reality, your own journey of consciousness?
Whoa, big questions to ponder. We encourage you to sit with these ideas, maybe even revisit these sources with a fresh perspective. There's always more to uncover. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.